the mountain and sea continent, one of the most renowned continents in the Great Thousand Worlds. Its fame, however, doesn't stem from the land itself, but rather from the presence of one of the most noble races in all the realms, the Phoenix clan. They are the sovereigns of all avian divine beasts, held in the highest regard. Their name resounds throughout the Great Thousand Worlds, and their strength places them firmly among the ranks of the most elite forces in existence. True to its name, this continent is a boundless expanse of mountains and seas. Millions of colossal peaks stretch endlessly across the land, their towering forms as imposing as giants holding up the heavens, exuding an ancient, primal aura. At the heart of this continent, amid the million peaks, mist swirls gently as celestial birds soar through the skies. Hidden among the mountains, grand palaces shimmer in and out of view. The air rings with clear and melodious cries, lending the entire region a dreamlike, celestial ambience. At the very center of these mountains stands a majestic grand hall. Streams flow freely through the hall, immortal energy drifting lazily in the air. Rows of stone seats line the banks of crystal-clear waters, each occupied by a seated figure, radiating spirit light. Behind each figure, the light subtly takes shape, vague outlines of majestic avian beasts. Any outsider who stumbled upon this sight would be utterly stunned, for every person present belongs to the supreme divine beast clan, all of avian bloodlines. These races stand shoulder to shoulder with the top-tier forces of the Great Thousand Worlds. And given their ancient origins and deep-rooted foundations, many established powers simply pale in comparison. When such supreme divine beast clans gather, the force they represent is overwhelming, even on a worldly scale. Seated at the foremost stone seat of the grand hall was a middle-aged man with long, flowing hair. Every motion exuded a natural aura of nobility, calm yet commanding. In the Phoenix clan, rulership alternates between the Phoenix King and the Phoenix Queen. At present, the reins of power were held by this man, Huang Jin, the current Phoenix Queen. Everyone, the divine transformation pool will open in 1 month. How much blood essence each of your clans can claim will depend entirely on your own strength. Huang Jin's gaze swept across the hall with quiet authority, a faint smile on his lips. As his voice fell, the eyes of all those gathered lit up with anticipation and urgency. The divine transformation pool, an ancient treasure passed down from generations past. In the distant past, the Phoenix clan and other avian divine beast clans forged a pact. When a clan's heavenly supreme neared the end of life, they would enter the divine transformation pool to dissolve their physical bodies and bloodlines into it. This allowed the younger generation, those among them with extraordinary talent, to later enter the pool and compete for the essence left behind. This essence could purify and evolve their bloodlines even further. To all avian divine beast clans of the Great Thousand Worlds, the divine transformation pool represents a sacred opportunity, a gift from the ancestors themselves. Even the Phoenix clan regards it with awe and longing. However, because the pool was formed by the joint efforts of many clans, no single group could claim it as their own. Once it opens, it's every clan for themselves, the strong claim more, the weak less. Huang Jin observed the reactions around the hall with a subtle smile. Then, his deep gaze turned to the end of the hall, where 2 figures were seated. The first wore black robes and carried an imposing presence. He was none other than Patriarch Tian, one of the Nine Nether Sparrow clan. Behind him stood a young woman in a dark gown. She had a tall, graceful figure, with a silhouette both delicate and curvaceous. Her cold, striking beauty and tightly pressed red lips gave her a wild, untamed charm that was breathtaking to behold. This was none other than Nine Nether herself. Patriarch Tian Huang, Miss Nine Nether, have you reached a decision regarding the proposal I raised earlier? Huang Jin asked with a faint smile. Upon hearing this, Tian Huang, normally so composed in Mu Chen's presence, showed a flicker of unease, his expression alternating between pale and dark. Beside him, Nine Nether bit her lip tightly, her silence revealing the conflict within her. Seeing their hesitation, Huang Jin chuckled lightly. You both know that my son is cultivating the 9 revolutions Saint Ascension art. He has already undergone 8 nirvanic rebirths. With just 1 more, he will ascend into sainthood. This is of great importance to the Phoenix clan, so I do hope the Nine Nether Sparrow clan will lend their support. As he spoke, Huang Jin glanced behind him, where a young man sat quietly in meditation. The young man was extraordinarily handsome, with sharp brows and starry eyes, dressed in a golden robe, radiating an aura of nobility. From a distance, he looked like a prince, exuding a presence that made one feel an irresistible urge to bow before him. This young man was none other than Huang Jin's son, the current young patriarch of the Phoenix clan, Huang Xuanji. It was rumored that this son had mastered the Phoenix clan's supreme divine art, the 9 Revolutions Saint Ascension art. This art involved 9 cycles of rebirth, with each cycle requiring 10 years of effort. Once all 9 revolutions were completed, one could ascend to the saint grade. The 9 Revolutions Saint Ascension art was also ranked among the 36 most extraordinary divine arts in the Great Thousand Worlds, highlighting its exceptional nature. However, this divine art was incredibly difficult to cultivate, requiring extraordinary talent. Moreover, each cycle involved devouring the bloodline of a supreme divine beast. At present, Huang Xuanji had successfully completed 8 revolutions and had entered the immortal grade. But with the 8th revolution completed, the required supreme divine beast bloodlines were becoming increasingly rare, and it was clear that this time, they had set their sights on the ancient Undying bird bloodline possessed by the Nine Nether. The ancient Undying bird, belonging to the Phoenix lineage, was even rarer than the true Phoenix. In fact, the only person in the world still carrying the Undying bird bloodline was Nine Nether. Other supreme divine beast clans watched this scene coldly. In the world of divine beasts, the law of the jungle was even harsher than in the human world. The Nine Nether Sparrow clan, though a divine beast race, was not yet considered a supreme divine beast clan. Thus, when they possessed the bloodline of the Undying bird, they would undoubtedly attract much covetous attention. A dark look flashed in Tian Huang's eyes. Nine Nether was the only person in their Nine Nether Sparrow clan to have awakened the Undying bird bloodline in countless generations. As such, the entire clan viewed them as their hope and had poured all their resources into their cultivation, hoping that one day Nine Nether would achieve the final evolution and ascend to the saint grade. That was why Tian Huang had brought Nine Nether to the Phoenix clan, hoping to use the divine transformation pool. However, he never expected that this would lead to Nine Nether's Undying bird bloodline catching the attention of Huang Jin. How could Tian Huang not know? If Huang Xuanji devoured Nine Nether's Undying bird bloodline, it would likely prevent Nine Nether from making any further progress in their life. This would be a devastating blow to the Nine Nether Sparrow clan. But the Phoenix clan was powerful, and Huang Jin, as the Phoenix King and a Saint-grade Heavenly Supreme, was far beyond the Nine Nether Sparrow clan's ability to challenge. Refusing would only provoke their anger. For a moment, Tian Huang was in a state of turmoil. He could only force himself to speak. It is indeed fortunate that His Majesty values my daughter. However, when she was young, she was reckless and formed a bloodline bond with a human. There may be some complications. This statement drew surprised glances from several supreme divine beasts present. Even Huang Jin furrowed his brows. The Phoenix clan prided itself on its nobility and purity, and in their eyes, even other divine beasts seemed crude. How could they accept a human connection? Tian Huang noticed this and felt a small sense of relief. While this revelation would damage Nine Nether's reputation, as long as she was safe, her reputation mattered little. However, just as Tian Huang was beginning to feel some relief, Huang Xuanji, who had been standing behind Huang Jin, suddenly smiled faintly. This matter is not a problem. Capture that human, and my clan has many ways to sever the bloodline bond without causing the slightest harm to Miss Nine Nether. Hearing this, Nine Nether's heart sank. Severing the bloodline bond would surely cause harm to someone. If she wasn't hurt, it would undoubtedly harm Mu Chen. Tian Huang hesitated and said with a forced smile, "I'm afraid that person might be difficult to capture." "Why?" Huang Jin's eyes narrowed slightly as he casually replied, "In this great thousand world, there are not many people whom the Phoenix clan cannot capture." Tian Huang gritted his teeth and reluctantly answered, "Because the one who formed the bloodline bond with my daughter is the master of the Mu Manor on Tianluo continent, Mu Chen." Mu Chen. The name did not provoke confusion. Instead, several of the supreme divine beasts present exclaimed in surprise, "Could it be the Mu Chen who recently caused chaos in the Futu ancient clan?" Tian Huang nodded. If he hadn't known how different Mu Chen was now, he wouldn't have revealed his identity. Huang Jin was also somewhat surprised. The name Mu Chen had been quite prominent in the Great Thousand World lately. Of course, he wasn't concerned with Mu Chen's Mu Manor, but he was very interested in Mu Chen's mother, who was currently the first elder of the Futu ancient clan. With such a background, even the Phoenix clan wouldn't be able to do anything to Mu Chen. Huang Jin furrowed his brow. In that case, we can't forcefully capture him to sever the bloodline bond. Otherwise, Qing Yinjing would never let this go. Seeing Huang Jin fall silent, Tian Huang couldn't help but feel a surge of joy. However, before his joy could spread, he sensed a meaningful gaze from Huang Xuanji. With a faint smile, the latter spoke, "If that's the case, let's take a step back. This bloodline bond doesn't concern me. After all, it won't affect me. It's true that the Phoenix clan values purity, but if obtaining the Phoenix bloodline requires enduring a little, he's willing to tolerate it. Besides, how could he not see through Tian Huang's excuses? Tian Huang's heart sank when he heard this. Huang Xuanji shot him a cold glance and, seeing through his thoughts, said that Mu Chen has his mother backing him, so the Phoenix clan can't do anything about him. But don't think that just because of that, we're afraid of him. If you think you can use him to threaten the Phoenix clan, I must say, Mu Chen doesn't yet have that kind of qualification. As for whether Mu Chen will stand up for Miss Jiuyo, I'm also curious to see what kind of talent this young prodigy, who caused such upheaval in the Futu ancient clan, actually possesses. With that, he smiled and looked at Tian Huang, whose face was ashen, and Jiuyo, whose expression was icy cold. Moreover, I don't believe Mu Chen has the courage to run wild in the Phoenix clan. If he dares come, I will capture him and make him understand what it means to be in a realm beyond the heavens, a person beyond humans. Just because he rampaged through the Futu ancient clan doesn't mean no one in this great thousand worlds can control him. In the grand hall, Huang Xuanji's tone was composed, his aura calm but tinged with an undeniable pride, subtly revealing a kingly presence. His demeanor was truly extraordinary. Seeing this, Huang Jin also smiled and nodded, clearly satisfied with Huang Xuanji's performance. Though Mu Chen's reputation was growing, he still couldn't compare to his own son. After all, his son was the true, unparalleled prodigy. Turning his regal eyes toward Tian Huang and Jiuyo, his voice echoed throughout the hall. My decision is made. 1 month from now, when the divine transformation pool opens, it will be my son's 9 revolutions day. By then, if you still refuse, my son will take matters into his own hands. Behind Mu Manor. On a mountain peak, Mu Chen sat quietly, surrounded by vast spiritual light that rippled like the sea. Behind him, a towering purple-golden figure stood, its breath causing the surrounding spiritual energy to surge like a torrent. There was a faint rumbling sound in the air, a mighty presence. Mu Chen's meditation lasted the entire day. When the sun rose, his eyes slowly opened, and 2 beams of immense spiritual light shot out from his dark pupils, tearing apart the very heavens and earth. The immortal golden body behind him also flickered before dissipating. Feeling the immortal golden body fade, Mu Chen's gaze shifted. He could faintly sense that his immortal golden body had reached the brink of perfection, its power nearing its peak in his hands. This meant the immortal golden body's power had reached its limit. From now on, its enhancement would depend on his own strength. Your immortal golden body has reached an exquisite level. Suddenly, a voice came from behind. Mu Chen turned to see Qing Yanjing, who had appeared without him noticing, watching with interest as the immortal golden body vanished. Mu Chen nodded slightly. If it were just about the immortal golden body, he might be close to matching the heavenly emperor himself. With your immortal golden body's proficiency, you're qualified to compete for the eternal undying body, Qing Yanjing said with a smile. At the mention of the eternal undying body, Mu Chen's eyes sparkled with fervor. It was his ultimate dream. From the moment he began cultivating the great sun indestructible body, he had been eagerly anticipating the final form, the eternal undying body. But the eternal undying body is safeguarded by the Moat ancient clan. It won't be easy to obtain. Mu Chen sighed. The immortal emperor only entrusted the eternal undying body to the Moat ancient clan for safekeeping. They are merely custodians, not the true owners. According to the rules left by the immortal emperor, every few years, the Moat ancient clan must hold the eternal assembly, where all those who have achieved the immortal golden body are qualified to participate. At that time, the eternal undying body will choose its master. However, the Mo ancient clan nowadays truly does see itself as the owner of the eternal undying body, going to great lengths to prevent other cultivators of the immortal golden body from succeeding, trying to ensure that their own people are recognized as the rightful bearers of the eternal undying body. But unfortunately, up until now, they've not succeeded. As she spoke, Qing Yanjing sneered coldly, a touch of mockery in her voice. They have guarded it for countless years. Why would they simply hand it over to outsiders? Mu Chen smiled, not surprised by this turn of events. After all, he understood the allure of the eternal undying body. Even a deeply rooted race like the Moat ancient clan couldn't resist it. After all, it was one of the 5 original law bodies of heaven and earth, and it had once created the immortal emperor, one of the most powerful figures from the ancient times. However, no matter how reluctant they are, when the eternal assembly begins, I will certainly go to the Moat ancient clan. Since the immortal emperor wishes to choose the best possible successor for the eternal undying body, I'll naturally go and contend for it. Mu Chen's eyes flashed slightly as he spoke in a low voice. He had cultivated from the great sun indestructible body all the way to the current immortal golden body, enduring countless hardships along the way. All for that final step, the eternal undying body. No matter how much the Mode ancient clan might oppose it, he would spare no effort in competing for it. The Heavenly Emperor had once told him that until his strength was sufficient, he should not go to the Mode ancient clan to compete. But now, he was no longer the same as before. Since my son has such great ambitions, I will naturally support you. When the time comes, go and compete. If you truly gain the recognition of the eternal undying body, and if the Mode ancient clan dares to make trouble or bully my son, I will never let them off the hook, Qing Yinjing said as she patted Mu Chen's head. Her tone tinged with a hint of domineering confidence. Mu Chen smiled upon hearing this, not bothering to feign humility, and nodded. Then thank you, mother. As his words fell, his expression suddenly shifted. He clenched his hand, and a jade talisman appeared. The talisman flickered with spiritual light, then shattered. The light rose, transforming into a line of glowing text in front of him. Mu Chen frowned slightly as he looked at it, his expression changing instantly. Nine Nether is in trouble. Return to Tianluo immediately. Mu Chen's pupils contracted as he stood up abruptly, his face turning grim. This jade talisman had been left by him for Mandala, instructing her to break it in case of an emergency, so he could sense it. Clearly, something serious had happened to Nine Nether, and Mandala had used it to send this message. What happened to Nine Nether? Mu Chen's eyes flashed with a fierce light. He had an extraordinary bond with Nine Nether. Though not lovers, they were like family to him. Back when Mu Chen had first met her in the Northern Spirit Realm, their bloodline connection had bound them together. It could be said that Nine Nether had guided him to where he was today. Before Mu Chen could stand on his own, it was Nine Nether who had protected him, offering him shelter. Thus, Mu Chen always held deep gratitude and respect for her. When he saw this message, his emotions became deeply stirred. What's wrong? Qing Yinjing, noticing Mu Chen's change in expression, narrowed her eyes. Mu Chen was usually calm and resolute, not easily moved by external matters. But seeing him like this, she knew it must be something extremely important. Mother, has the teleportation array to Tianluo continent been prepared? Mu Chen asked, wiping away the glowing text with his hand, his gaze now focused on Qing Yinjing, his tone solemn. Qing Yinjing thought for a moment, then replied, normally, it would take another 5 days. But seeing how urgent you are, I'll hurry and finish it in 2 days. Typically, with her status as a Saint-grade Grandmaster, even the top-tier superpowers wouldn't dare rush her when it came to setting up a spirit array. But for her son, she would certainly work around the clock to complete it. Then I'll leave it to you, mother, Mu Chen said gratefully. Qing Yinjing smiled gently and replied, no need to thank me, it's nothing. After a pause, she looked at Mu Chen and asked, what happened? Do you need my help? A very important friend of mine is in trouble, but I'm not sure of the details yet. I need to return to Tianluo continent for now. I won't disturb you and father's reunion for the moment, Mu Chen said with a smile. Because you made him the ruler of 100 Spirit Continent, your father has been incredibly busy lately. Qing Yinjing teased, but didn't say much else. She simply smiled at Mu Chen and added, but since you're confident, I won't say more. Now that you're my son, news of you is probably known to the top superpowers in the Great Thousand Worlds. So even if you have conflicts with them, they'll know to hold back. At the very least, their Saint-grade experts won't take action. Mu Chen nodded. Although he did not intend to use his mother's reputation to wield power, the bond between them was unchangeable. It was a form of background that could be used to intimidate some opponents he wasn't yet capable of dealing with. Though Mu Chen was self-reliant, he was not foolish. 2 days later, at the back mountains of Mu Manor. In the vast valley, a massive spiritual array, about 1,000 feet tall, stood. Within the array, terrifying spatial fluctuations emanated, causing the surrounding space to constantly twist. Above the array, billions of spirit seals flickered in and out of sight, revealing the complexity of the structure. Even Mu Chen, at this moment, could not fully comprehend the magnitude of such an array, as expected of a Saint-grade Grandmaster. Standing outside the grand array, Mu Chen looked at the massive teleportation array and couldn't help but exclaim in awe. Behind him were Qing Yinjing, Ling Shi, and Long Xiang. Even Mu Feng, who had been extremely busy lately, managed to find time to come and see him off. As for Xun'er, she had already said her goodbyes a few days ago and returned to the 10,000 Phoenixes Spiritual Academy. Kid, be careful. Mu Feng, now aware of the urgent matter Mu Chen was facing, was concerned. After all, in the great thousand worlds, powerful experts were as numerous as clouds, unlike the small 100-spirit continent. Old man, do you still think I'm the same as when I left the Northern Spirit Realm? Mu Chen smiled helplessly. When he had left the Northern Spirit Realm years ago, Mu Feng had given him the same warning. Once things settle down on the 100-spirit continent, your mother and I will come to Tianluo continent and see the Mu Manor you've built. Qin Yanjing said with a smile. I'll be ready to welcome you then. Mu Chen smiled, took a deep breath, and said no more. He nodded to Qin Yanjing, Mu Feng, Ling Shi, and the others before stepping into the spiritual array. With a flick of his sleeve, immense spiritual energy poured into the teleportation array. In an instant, a vast spatial fluctuation erupted, and the world seemed to twist. A spatial passageway appeared behind Mu Chen. Old man, mother, I'm leaving. Mu Chen waved his hand at them before swiftly turning around. His dark eyes instantly sharpened. He stared at the spatial passageway and stepped into it. At the same time, his hands clenched tightly. Nine Nether, please don't let anything happen to you. In the past, you protected me. This time, let me protect you. The immense teleportation array erupted with a blinding light, and Mu Chen's figure vanished within the intense glow. On Tianluo continent, at the headquarters of Mu Manor in the northern domain. Behind the headquarters, atop a high platform, there was a huge spiritual array. However, the array's spiritual light was dim, indicating it was an incomplete version. But today, this array suddenly erupted with a brilliance of 10,000 feet. Violent spatial fluctuations gathered, gradually tearing open a spatial passage in the center of the array. And through the passage, a figure slowly stepped out. It seems the teleportation array has successfully connected. The figure, observing the spiritual array below his feet bursting with spiritual light, a sign of activation, smiled slightly. This figure was none other than Mu Chen, who had just returned to the northern domain from the northern spirit realm. He had been in the spatial passage for 5 days before finally arriving in the northern domain. However, Mu Chen was very satisfied with the speed. Otherwise, it would have taken at least 2 to 3 months to travel across the continents. Whoosh! As soon as Mu Chen appeared, several orderly flashes of light shot towards him from not far away. As they drew closer, their figures revealed themselves, armored guards with imposing auras. Who goes there? Who dares to enter Mu Manor's headquarters? The guards shouted sharply, their spiritual energy erupting as their sharp eyes locked onto Mu Chen. Quick response, Mu Chen smiled, feeling quite satisfied with these guards. As he stepped out of the teleportation array, his face was clearly revealed. It's the Manor Lord. Subordinates greet the Manor Lord. Seeing his face, the once fierce guards were taken aback, then quickly knelt on one knee in midair. Everyone, rise, Mu Chen said with a carefree smile. With a light flick of his sleeve, he helped them all to their feet. Shwa. At that moment, 2 beams of spiritual light descended from the sky with immense force. They materialized, revealing none other than Mandala and the Xiantian Elder. You finally returned, Mandala sighed in relief upon seeing Mu Chen. Mu Chen first smiled at her, then cupped his fist in respect to Xiantian Elder. Thank you for guarding Mu Manor during my absence, Elder Xiantian. Upon hearing this, Xiantian Elder quickly put on a smile, his voice full of warmth. What are you saying, Manor Lord? As a Mu Manor Elder, protecting the manor is my duty. Mu Chen was taken aback by his response. After all, when he had forced Xiantian Elder to become a member of Mu Manor before, the old man had been extremely unwilling. Yet now, his attitude had completely changed. Seemingly aware of Mu Chen's confusion, Xiantian Elder chuckled awkwardly. The news of Manor Lord's feats in the Futu Ancient clan has spread throughout the Great Thousand Worlds. When Xiantian Elder had first heard those rumors, he had been shocked. While he had known Mu Chen's strength was no small matter, he never expected that Mu Chen would overturn the entire Futu Ancient clan. He even single-handedly suppressed the elders of the Futu clan Xin lineage and Imo lineage. Of course, what really made Xiantian Elder uneasy was that Mu Chen's mother had become the great elder of the Futu Ancient clan. With such a powerful background, Mu Chen and Mu Manor were not to be underestimated in the current Great Thousand Worlds. In Xiantian Elder's mind, Mu Manor, with this newfound backing, would undoubtedly have a bright future. Mu Chen's gaze flickered as he understood what Xiantian Elder was thinking. However, he wasn't bothered by it. If Xiantian Elder truly felt at ease as an elder of Mu Manor, it would be beneficial for the manor. He softened his gaze towards Xiantian Elder and then turned to Mandala. How has Mu Manor been recently? Mu Manor had already completely dominated the northern domain and was steadily extending its influence into the Tianluo continent. This would surely draw the attention of other old and powerful factions, making conflict more likely. There was some movement before, but after the news of your actions in the Futu ancient clan spread, the Tianluo continent has quieted down. Even the major superpowers hiding behind those factions seem to be retreating, Mandala said with a sigh. She had originally expected fierce competition for Mu Manor, but it seemed that Mu Chen's actions in the Futu ancient clan had suppressed everything. Mu Chen couldn't help but reflect. It wasn't his power that had intimidated those superpowers, but his mother, the current great elder of the Futu ancient clan. Clearly, Mu Chen had underestimated the impact of having a Saint-grade grandmaster as his mother. But in a way, it was good. If those superpowers were starting to back off, Mu Manor would one day become the true ruler of the northern domain. With the power of this vast continent, Mu Manor would join the ranks of the top superpowers in the Great Thousand Worlds. Of course, that was only if Mu Chen could reach the Saint grade. Without that, Mu Manor would never reach the pinnacle. What's going on with the Nine Nether clan? Mu Chen asked, his expression turning serious. Let Elder Tian Ke explain it to you. I've already informed him, Mandala replied. As soon as Mandala finished speaking, a streak of light shot toward them from the distance. It stopped before them, revealing Elder Tian Ke of the Nine Nether clan. Nine Nether clan's Tian Ke greets the Manor Lord. Elder Tian Ke looked at the young man standing before Mandala, his face showing a flash of excitement. He couldn't help but feel a sense of nostalgia, remembering how, when he had come to the Great Luo Heaven Domain to bring the Nine Nether clan to Mu Manor, it had been nothing more than a top-tier force within the northern domain. Back then, Elder Tian Ke had looked down on the Great Luo Heaven Domain, for the Nine Nether clan was a divine beast race, with a heritage and strength far surpassing that of a mere domain. He would have never imagined that, just a few short years later, the Great Luo Heaven Domain would transform into Mu Manor, dominating the northern domain. Even the other top forces on Tianluo continent were now too afraid to challenge it. The young Mu Chen, who had once only been a minor supreme, had now reached the level of a heavenly supreme. Even the mighty Futu ancient clan couldn't stand against him. The last time Elder Tian Ke had seen Mu Chen, he had thought of him as a junior. But now, he could no longer call him that and had to respectfully address him as the Manor Lord. Elder Tian Ke, you are being too polite, Mu Chen said, his expression gentle, revealing none of the domineering demeanor typical of a heavenly supreme as he clasped his fist in return. Seeing Mu Chen still as warm and composed as in the past, Elder Tian Ke secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He knew that talents like Mu Chen were proud and arrogant individuals. Back when they were in the Nine Nether clan, they often put on a difficult face to persuade Mu Chen to sever his bloodline bond with the clan, but it was clear that he had not held a grudge against them. The Nine Nether clan has always had good judgment, better than us old folks when it comes to recognizing talent, Elder Tian Ke said with a bitter smile. Had they known back then that Mu Chen would achieve such success, they would have gladly let him keep the bloodline bond instead of being so obstinate. Elder Tian Ke, let's discuss the matters regarding the Nine Nether clan. Mu Chen smiled slightly. Upon mentioning serious matters, Elder Tian Ke's expression turned grave as he sorrowfully said, I implore you, Mansion Lord, to rescue the Nine Nether clan and help my Nine Nether clan. The gentleness faded from Mu Chen's face, his dark eyes turning sharp. Don't worry, no matter what happens, I won't let the Nine Nether clan come to harm. The situation is as follows. Not long ago, a member of the Nine Nether clan returned, insisting on finding an opportunity for evolution. She claimed that she is too weak now and must discover the path of evolution to fully awaken her phoenix bloodline and join the ranks of the supreme divine beasts, Elder Tian Ke explained with a bitter smile. At this, Mu Chen narrowed his eyes. He understood that Nine Nether wanted this because she had seen him break through to the heavenly supreme stage while she had not been able to keep up, rendering her unable to assist him any longer, prompting her to search for the evolution path within the Nine Nether clan. Thinking of this, Mu Chen felt a tangle of complicated emotions. Ultimately, Nine Nether was doing all this because of him. And the clan leader, being unable to refuse her, planned to take her to the Phoenix clan, where there exists a divine transformation pool. Many ancestors of the avian divine beasts who fell would transcend there, merging their life force into the pool. This is a great opportunity left by the ancestors, and indeed, our Nine Nether clan once had an ancestor who transcended there, so we have a quota for the pool. After discussions, the clan decided to give this opportunity to Nine Nether. At this point, Elder Tion K's face was filled with bitterness. However, the problem arose here. None expected that the Phoenix clan's son of the Phoenix King, Huang Xuanji, who practiced the 9 Revolutions Saint Ascension art, would target Nine Nether. Each revolution of that legendary technique requires devouring a strand of a supreme divine beast's bloodline, and Huang Xuanji has already reached 8 revolutions, so he has set his sights on Nine Nether's Phoenix bloodline. 9 Revolutions Saint Ascension art? Mu Chen's expression hardened. This technique is among the 36 legendary divine arts, extraordinary indeed, and it was surprising that Huang Xuanji had mastered it. Understand that Nine Nether is the hope of our Nine Nether clan. If her Phoenix bloodline is devoured by Huang Xuanji, she will find it nearly impossible to progress in her lifetime. In essence, she will be ruined. Elder Tion K gritted his teeth. The Phoenix King also stated that if we refuse, once she enters the divine transformation pool, Huang Xuanji will take action, and at that point, Nine Nether may even lose her life. Though according to the rules, a protector can be found for entering the divine transformation pool, our clan's only Heavenly Supreme is only at the mid-spiritual grade and cannot protect Nine Nether at all. Recently, we have tried desperately to invite some Heavenly Supremes we had previous relations with, but they are all afraid of the Phoenix clan's might and dare not agree. We have been pushed to a dead end in our Nine Nether clan, so we can only humbly seek your help, hoping that you will act for Nine Nether's sake. By the end of his impassioned plea, tears streamed down Elder Tion K's face, and he was about to kneel down. However, a strong force supported him back up. He raised his head, gazing at Mu Chen's composed yet profound face, feeling a mix of anxiety. He was uncertain whether Mu Chen would agree. Despite their bloodline connection, the Phoenix clan was a top power in the Great Thousand Worlds, and ordinary Heavenly Supremes would not dare provoke them. Under his watchful eyes, Mu Chen's expression finally revealed a hint of scorn. Bring it upon themselves? Mu Chen's gaze shifted to Elder Tion K, his voice calm yet laced with chilling undertones, making Elder Tion K tremble with excitement, his eyes turning red. Elder Tion K, take me there. I want to see what Huang Xuanji is capable of to claim this bloodline. On the mountain and sea continent, amidst the million peaks, there lies a verdant lake where several mountain ranges converge. The lake, calm and mirror-like, reflects the heavens and earth, creating a serene yet strangely oppressive atmosphere. Even a Heavenly Supreme feels a subtle pressure in its presence. This place is usually quiet, but today, the calm is shattered by a flurry of activity. As the first light of dawn breaks, countless streaks of light, resembling comets, streak across the sky and descend, covering the mountain peaks surrounding the lake. With their arrival, the air is filled with the sound of many birds calling, some like cranes, others like sparrows, creating a chorus as if thousands of birds were gathering together. The Divine Transformation Pool holds exceptional significance among the avian divine beasts. Despite the limited number of entry spots, every time it opens, many divine beast clans gather to witness. Various clans have gathered, and the noise of their chatter fills the air, echoing through the mountains. Suddenly, the sound of a mighty phoenix cry pierces the sky. A profound, indescribable pressure sweeps over the scene, causing the powerful figures from the divine beast clans present to change expression, their faces filled with awe. They all look up, and in the distance, a colorful mist spreads across the heavens. Through it, figures appear, slowly descending onto a towering mountain near the lake. As the mist disperses, 2 figures are revealed. The first is Huang Jin, the Phoenix King of the Phoenix clan, and behind him is Huang Xuanji, tall and dignified, his presence exuding nobility and power. Greetings, Phoenix King. At the sight of Huang Jin, all the powerful figures from the avian divine beast clans greet him respectfully. Huang Jin smiles and nods to the crowd, then lifts his gaze to the distant sky, where more lights flash by, descending onto the nearby peaks. As these figures land, a dominating spiritual pressure fills the air, and behind them, spiritual light coalesces, forming shadowy silhouettes of colossal divine birds. Among them, a golden giant eagle with 9 heads can be seen, along with beings that resemble dragons and sparrows, and majestic eagles with eyes as sharp as divine blades. The powerful figures of the divine beast clans exchange looks of solemn admiration. These individuals are all from the supreme divine beast clans, beasts of immense power. There are 15 supreme divine beast clans from the avian species of our Great Thousand Worlds, and it seems that nearly all have come. I've heard that for this divine transformation pool, these supreme divine beast clans have sent out their most outstanding talents. It looks like they intend to refine their bloodlines and take the next step toward becoming even more powerful. However, the blood essence formed within the divine transformation pool is limited. It seems that a fierce competition is inevitable. With Huang Xuanji of the Phoenix clan here, who could possibly compete with him? It seems that the lion's share will fall to him. Not necessarily. While Huang Xuanji is extraordinary, Lin Song of the Nine-Headed Golden Eagle clan and Kong Linger of the Nine-Colored Peacock clan are not to be underestimated. Indeed, these talents from the Supreme Divine Beast clans have hidden their abilities for centuries, all planning to use this opportunity in the Divine Transformation Pool to lay the foundation for their future ascension to Saint Grade. A fierce battle is unavoidable. Amidst the mountains, whispers grow louder, and eyes dart back and forth, eagerly scanning the figures gathered on the mountain peaks. The Nine Nether clan is also here. Could they have secured a spot in the Divine Transformation Pool? As some of the observers scan the scene, they spot several figures atop one of the mountains and quickly recognize them. Several centuries ago, an ancestor from the Nine Nether clan entered the Divine Transformation Pool and ascended, earning their clan a spot. It seems they're finally ready to use it. Bah, you don't know anything. The Nine Nether clan's situation is far more complicated than you think. Someone with sharp intelligence sneers, the Nine Nether's Jiuyo is said to have evolved into the ancient Undying Phoenix bloodline, but now he's being targeted by Huang Xuanji. Huang Xuanji's 9 Revolutions Ascension art is missing just one final key element. So once Jiuyo enters the Divine Transformation Pool, Huang Xuanji will seize the opportunity to forcibly strip away his bloodline. In the world of divine beast races, where the law of the jungle prevails even more than in the human world, most people found it perfectly natural, even when they heard of Huang Xuanji's ruthless and domineering actions. The saying carrying a jade will bring trouble rings true. When the Nine Nether clan produced such a rare super bloodline, it was only to be expected that others would take an interest. If they had stayed silent and amassed wealth in secret, it would have been fine, but instead, they had to flaunt it. Now that it had caught Huang Xuanji's eye, there was no way they would be able to escape easily. Not far off, on a mountain peak, Tian Huang, the patriarch of the Nine Nether clan, noticed the various gazes directed at them, his face turning slightly grim. Behind Tian Huang stood Jiuyo. Today, she wore a tight-fitting dark robe, with leggings that accentuated her long, slender legs. Her waist was narrow, and her chest, with its graceful curve, caught the eye. Her face was cold and serene, her lips pressed into a firm line, as always, with a determined, stubborn air. Compared to Tian Huang's grim expression, Jiuyo's demeanor was much calmer. However, the way her jade-like hand clenched ever so slightly betrayed the turmoil in her heart. Old Lu, this time, I can only ask for your help. Tian Huang sighed deeply and spoke to an elder in a gray robe beside him. This elder was the only heavenly supreme in their Nine Nether clan, who had been in seclusion, but was brought out for the sake of Jiuyo. However, this elder, though powerful, was only at the late spiritual grade. The gray-robed elder's face wore a bitter expression, but he still nodded and said, "Rest assured, Patriarch. I will do everything I can to protect Jiuyo, but I might not be able to match Huang Xuanji." Tian Huang's body trembled slightly. How could he not know? Huang Xuanji had already reached the initial immortal grade, and his combat prowess was extraordinary. It was said that a strong warrior, also at the initial immortal grade, had perished at his hands. His record was nearly invincible. There's no need for Lu to face Huang Xuanji head-on. As long as we can bring Jiuyo to the Divine Transformation Pool and keep her away from him, buying some time, we can take advantage of the opportunity to get her out, Tian Huang reassured. I will do my best, Elder Lu nodded, then took a deep breath. A determined look appeared on his elderly face. He was furious at the Phoenix clan's aggression, and today, no matter the cost, even if it meant losing his life, he would ensure Jiuyo's safety. However, he suddenly seemed to remember something and glanced at Jiuyo, hesitating. Has there been any word from Elder Tian K? That Mu Chen, they say he's no ordinary person now. If he could intervene, perhaps he could stand against Huang Xuanji. Tian Huang furrowed his brow slightly. Not yet. Our Nine Nether clan has no need to rely on outsiders. Besides, if he comes, he would offend the Phoenix clan. That boy would probably weigh the pros and cons. There was no reproach in his voice, as he knew that this was simply how things were. In this vast world, no one would risk offending the Phoenix clan just to help the Nine Nether clan. Didn't they notice how even the divine beast races, who had once been on good terms with them, no longer dared to lend a hand? Father. At this, Jiuyo's cold, beautiful eyes narrowed at him. Seeing this, Tian Huang could only smile bitterly and shake his head. All right, I won't say anything bad about him. Meanwhile, atop the highest peak, the ever-watchful Huang Jin, with his imposing presence, lowered his head and cast a faint, indifferent glance in their direction. He then smiled lightly and spoke. I wonder if you've made up your minds? Countless gazes turned toward them, and Tian Huang could only brace himself and say, Phoenix King, could you spare the Nine Nether clan this time? His tone had taken on a pleading note, completely shedding the dignity of the clan leader. Huang Jin sighed lightly and replied, why go through all this? If you satisfy my son, I will regard it as a favor from the Nine Nether clan and repay you in the future. But you have repeatedly refused, truly ungrateful. His gaze was indifferent, with no emotion as he looked at Tian Huang. Since you refuse to listen, then let each of us rely on our own strength. Tian Huang's face grew pale, and his expression sank into despair. Behind Huang Jin, Huang Xuanji's regal gaze swept across the three of them, his eyes briefly resting on Elder Lu. He then smiled faintly and said, so this is your protector? Late spiritual grade. A faint, mocking smile tugged at Huang Xuanji's lips. He shook his head and said, if that's all you've got, I suggest you give up. As his voice fell, he took a step forward, and in an instant, the sound of a phoenix's cry resounded throughout the sky. A monstrous wave of oppressive force swept across, causing the entire world to tremble under its might. This overwhelming pressure was primarily aimed at Elder Lu, who immediately shuddered. His face alternated between shades of blue and white, and the terrifying sense of oppression nearly forced his knees to bend, threatening to make him kneel. Clearly, Huang Xuanji intended to crush Elder Lu's courage before even entering the divine transformation pool, so that once they were inside, Elder Lu would lose all will to resist before him. Elder Lu understood Huang Xuanji's intentions. He gritted his teeth, veins bulging on his forehead, but the terrifying pressure from the immortal grade Heavenly Supreme and the true Phoenix majesty radiating from Huang Xuanji was overwhelming. It made Elder Lu's knees dip lower with every passing moment. Standing nearby, Patriarch Tian Huang and Jiu Yu's expressions were ashen, yet under Huang Xuanji's pressure, they could only watch helplessly as Elder Lu slowly bent his knees before them. Patriarch Tian Huang felt his vision darken, and he almost spat out blood. The humiliation was unbearable, nearly ruining the Nine Nether clan's pride. Jiu Yu clenched her jade-like hand, her fingers digging into her palm, blood dripping down. In that moment, even her usual stubbornness couldn't stop the tears from flowing down her cheeks. The sense of helplessness left her with overwhelming self-blame. Enough. If you want this bloodline, then take it, she suddenly shouted, her eyes wide with fury as she glared at Huang Xuanji, her voice filled with sorrow. However, before her words could even fully fade away, a thunderous roar suddenly shattered the sky. Countless powerful individuals raised their heads in alarm, their eyes fixed on the horizon, where a vast surge of spiritual energy came crashing like a massive tidal wave. Boom, boom. The overwhelming spiritual energy struck, shattering the pressure from Huang Xuanji's aura in an instant. Then, a deep voice echoed across the heavens. You're not qualified to claim this bloodline yet. The thunder rolled, and Jiu Yu's voice was abruptly cut off. She snapped her head up, only to see a tall, young figure stepping through the air. His handsome face, like a storm brewing beneath a sea of thunder, sent a chill through her heart. Jiu Yu stared blankly at the familiar, unforgettable figure, and then tears flowed uncontrollably down her cheeks.